All right, guys. So to all of you who've joined us this morning, if you've just come in now, thank you so much for giving us your ear and your eyes for the next half an hour. This is our third wellness webinar, and we've done a nutrition one a couple of weeks ago. We had some of our coaches jump in for a sort of review on the year and mental health webinar. We've got this one, last one for the year. And then next year, starting kind of mid-Jan, we're going to kick this off, and it's going to be a regular space. So it's going to be great to have you guys join us throughout the year as we host these on different topics. Obviously, today is all about navigating the festive season because that's where we are. We're into December, if you can believe it, already. And the year is grinding to a halt, or it's heading fifth gear into the end of the year, depending which way you look at it. And we know what's around the corner, and I thought it was a very good opportunity to talk to you about your health over the next couple of weeks and touch on all of that. I'm Adrian Penzorn. I'm a registered dietitian and a sports scientist. I am the health and nutrition lead at Strove. So general health, nutrition focus, a lot of the things that we play with in that space, and get nutrition specifically a bigger voice with so much more to come in the new year that I'm looking forward to. Hopefully you'll be seeing a little bit more of me in these across the different content we're doing or in our Nourish coaching program. So there is a chat feature. Obviously you guys are all aware with that. Please pop any questions into there as we go. Might be related to what I'm talking about, or it might be not. I'm happy to answer anything if it's topical to the minute I'm at. Otherwise, I'll get back to them all by the end of the session as well. So please feel free to chat, post some notes, questions, anything you feel like in there. All right, so guys, we're into December, and we know that the couple of weeks ahead bring with it some risks. So I thought I'd start with the bad news, and well, it might not be news because these are all things that we've experienced ourselves, I'm sure, over the years and seasons gone by. But we know what's ahead. We know that there might be some challenges. All of us navigate this time and have different experiences with that. But there are some festive season risks, and there are kind of 6 of them that we see quite commonly. And I thought I'd just list them here before we go on the up from here. So we're starting at the ebb, but everything's going up from here. We know some of the risks ahead. Overindulgence, one of them, either from food or drink, quite common. We see it sort of all the time, and hopefully I'll leave you with a few tips to control that a little bit. We might have some sort of disrupted routines ahead because we're on holiday or because we're traveling or whatever it is. Routine does sometimes go out the window, and we're creatures of habit. And that can be a risk to our well-being, our energy, and how well we get through the next couple of weeks. Stress and fatigue can be a very big issue as well. And we've gone through the last 11 months kind of, digging a little bit deeper, and we should be using the next couple of weeks to refill our cup. But sometimes we don't quite get it right, and this time can actually add to our stress and take a little bit more energy than we need. And if we can navigate a little bit better, perhaps we can come out the other side with a refilled cup and ready for the next year. Sedentary behavior becomes common in December. Quite often we just want to rest, relax. We want to sit down and kind of catch our breath. And it's a bit counterintuitive, but we actually need to be a little bit more active and able to, in order to be able to do that. So just sitting down, not always the best solution. Sedentary behavior often compounds a number of other things. So finding some time for that activity is hopefully something I'll leave you with today as well. In a month's time, many of us might see that scale number just tip over a little bit higher than normal because of all of these reasons, the overindulgence and not getting in as much exercise. And it is quite common, but hopefully this might be the year that doesn't happen. Weight loss doesn't necessarily need to be the goal, but perhaps just weight maintenance can be a success on its own. But at the same time, I also don't want to leave you with this fear of it. And, having a big meal one day is not going to make or break your success, or 500 grams or a kilo that you weighed more today than yesterday isn't fat gain when we just have a big night, for example. It's the weeks and months that kind of build that up Quite often, that's just a bit of fluid weight that we might lose anyway. So take some of it with a pinch of salt, but see what it looks like over the weeks. And then make sure that we're not starting January on the back foot. Quite often our January goals are poor because of December. We set these unrealistic targets and things we want to do. We want to do a fast and a juice cleanse and all these extreme approaches because we've let ourselves down a little bit in December. If we can get through with a little bit more balance, maybe we'll set some more achievable goals in January and things that you're actually still going to be doing come February or March. On the flip side, we can also see this time as an opportunity. So I said we're starting with the worst news, and now we're thinking forward positively about what might we be able to achieve. And we might have 2 or 4 weeks, all this maybe a bit different in terms of the amount of time that you've got. It might only be a couple of days, but perhaps at least 2 weeks break is enough time for us to start seeing some upside. It's enough time for us to start building a bit of a foundation of a new routine, and we can start to create habits over 2 weeks. Don't see it as a lost cause. See it as an opportunity to do this. You can take advantage of whatever time you have available to start putting these things in place. It might be a really good opportunity to start refilling that cup, thinking about yourself for a change. If you've just pushed the boundary this year a little bit, given, and not really been able to take something for yourself, prioritizing a little bit of self-care, it's a really good time to do that. Maybe it's just an opportunity to be better, just at one thing even. Maybe there's something that's just nagging you a little bit and you can spend a couple of days or a couple of weeks trying to be better at that one thing that's just eating at you a little bit towards the end of this year. Start next year in a better headspace, thinking about it a little bit more positively, having taken this opportunity to reflect, unwind, and take a positive step forward. It might also be a time just to reconnect on some relationships that will tie into feeling a little bit better, putting your mental health and well-being first as well. Maybe there's some family or friends you haven't spent enough time with, and a couple hours, a day or two, an event here or there as an opportunity to put everything else behind you and reconnect on those things. Or there's one thing that you just haven't done this year. What is that one thing? Maybe it's an event, maybe it's an accomplishment, maybe it doesn't have to be health related, it's an experience, whatever it is that you've been putting off, perhaps this is the time to do it. All in all, if we can see December and the festive season as an opportunity, I think it reframes things a little bit for us. So I think, yes, there's some risk, but at the same time, if we put a bit of time aside for ourselves and we see what's ahead and we put a few things in place, it might be a really good opportunity. And we can set ourselves a goal, maybe a challenge, something that we just really want to achieve instead of thinking, oh, I just need to get through this time instead. So framing it as an opportunity is a good way to kind of think about it. And this December goal of being perfectly glazed. Now, I'm going to lead into that a little bit with a story. So 1st December in our household is when the tree goes up. The kids get stuck into it. It's just over here in the corner. They do nag us from the middle of November or even earlier to get the thing up, but it's 1st of December. And we tie that in with something that's fairly traditional for us, and that's a lovely little gammon. And I was preparing this gammon and at the same time thinking about it and what was going on. And I'm going to run you through the recipe because it was a great way to discuss a number of different things. And it had me thinking about some very important points. And it was almost a metaphor for December. And the session that I was about to have with you guys was how I was going to get my beautiful gammon prepared, how I was going to get it perfectly glazed, and how it would speak to a number of different things. All right, now, this doesn't have to be a gammon. I do understand that we might not all eat some pork. So this recipe is a little bit of a choose your own adventure, if you like, as well. Some corned beef would work perfectly well as well. Exactly the same. I've got mine sitting here in front of me. But if you eat pork, great. And it might be on your list to have in December, which is cool. I'm going to give you a way to think about it. And if it's corned beef, maybe just use that instead. Both beautiful options to start what I will look at in terms of the recipe for success. So I have everything in front of me, and it got me thinking, well, what's in front of me is the foundation of good nutrition. And if we think about December and our nutrition goals of the things that we really want to do, a lot of it's spoken for in this recipe. All right, so the ingredients are in front of me. Obviously, there's some protein, which is great. And if you've heard me speak before, if you've gone through the Nourish program, whatever it is, you'll know that we often speak about the value of protein and how important it is as having it in every meal. Right? Some of it in your snack, perhaps, but making sure that your meals all have a good source of protein. So it's a great first start for this recipe for success. The second was, it's going to go in a big pot here full of water. And as we're using a lot of water, I was thinking to myself, well, obviously this is great because what we're focusing on this time is also being well hydrated. Drinks can become a little bit of an issue. The things that we choose to drink, all of a sudden, social events, cultural gatherings might be a little bit different. But if we really focus on that water intake, it can be quite useful. The other is that there's veg. Some of it goes in here to make it taste nice. There's a side of veg as well, which is great. But no health goal can really be achieved without vegetables. Right. So out of anything, I think that we can all agree on is eating more veg is always going to be good for us. Right. And if that's something we can prioritize over December and think to ourselves, all right, well, am I getting some protein? Well, how am I focusing on my hydration? And am I getting some veg? You're going to be on track. And the last is all the herbs and spices that kind of go into this. And it reminded me that eating well should taste good as well. We don't have to limit that. We don't have to restrict the enjoyment of something and get rid of flavor to think that I'm healthy at all. So getting all of these flavors in there was a good reminder of that as well. And then to finish it all would be the glaze. It's kind of that little cherry on top, which you'd have to stay tuned for. It's the recipe towards the end. I'm going to give you the recipe for my glaze that went onto this. But this had it all. So we've got the protein. It's either the gammon or the corned beef. Plenty of water. We're thinking about it going into the pot to cover. There's some veg that goes in here. So what ended up going in there, we've got carrots and celery, loads of flavor, some onion. All of that flavors the water and kind of gets it going, which is delicious. And then we've got our side. For this one, it was lovely corn and green veg, which was great. Throwing veg at something, a really easy way to go. So covering the gammon with some water, spices in there as well, a little bit of cinnamon, clove, and some black pepper, and the carrot, celery, nice and simple. All right. Cooking it in water is great as well, because not only is that water important for us, but it has some benefit as well, which I'll chat about in the steps as we go along. So we've got all of our ingredients and it's all laid out here in front of me. And as I had it all in front of me, I thought, well, this is great because now I've got a plan, and any recipe is a plan. And thinking forward to December is a great sort of way to frame that. And, am I prepared? Am I planned? And what's kind of ahead for me? And if I'm going to navigate December effectively, have I planned well? Because we all know that failing to plan is planning to fail. But it also doesn't have to be biting off more than you can chew. So if you can focus on the things that give you a little bit of bang for buck, and this is bang for buck as an example. I couldn't think of a meal prep idea or a recipe or anything that's pretty much more bang for buck. It took me 7 minutes to essentially unwrap the gammon, stick them in the pot, cover them in water with my vegetables, and get it on the stove behind me. 7 minutes then bought me an hour and a half after that. It was just doing its thing, letting it go, which is cool. And I knew I'm going to have a meal. I'm going to have some leftovers. The kids are going to eat this. Everything's kind of taken care of. That's bang for buck. That's the sort of thing. It can be easy. It can be very, very simple. So if you're going to focus on simple and look at sort of bang for buck, focus on the things that are easy. Maybe it's just one meal a day. That's all you have to focus on during December. Right? Think about yourself, well, which is the most valuable meal for me, so that I can focus on one meal, get it right. Maybe you've got a lot of social events coming up, you're meeting friends, you've got work functions, whatever it is. How can you plan a little bit better for these? Something as easy as checking a menu before you go is another way of doing that. But having your recipe in front of you and all your ingredients is prep and planning. But planning for whatever's coming ahead can also do that. You know what you're going to choose so that you're less likely to make a poor choice when you're there. The same goes for having a little snack maybe before you go to a party. You don't know what food's going to be available. You don't want to overeat just because you're too hungry and get caught up in anything. So if you have a little snack, you've got something on the side before you go there, you're going to be able to make a better choice once you're there. Making any choice when you're hungry is that much harder, right? Loretta, I like your comment there about repeating it louder for the people in the back who say healthy food doesn't taste good. It can be very delicious. And that's all up to us. It's all about flavor. It's getting it in there. This is a perfect example of this as well, right? Planning for your exercise at this time as well is so important. And if we don't have a plan or a little goal or a challenge, it often becomes a little bit harder to do it. So say to you, well, this is what I'm going to do in December. This is what I want to achieve. These are the things that I know that I want to do. And set that time aside for it. Put it into your calendar, put it into your diary so it's there and ready to go. All right. And put all of the things there so that you can do them. All right. Put it in front of you. Having that plan is going to make it that much more easy. All right. So my gammon goes in the pot, covered with water. The veg goes in and just let it do its thing. To cook a gammon or a corned beef is 30 minutes per 500 grams. So it's about 1.5 kilos, 90 minutes, right? It's bought me quite a bit of time. So now as this is simmering away the other day, as we get it sort of prepping, or as it's all kind of in there, it makes me think of how simple this is. And the two sort of simple things where it's just the water, and we've touched on how important that is. And if there's one thing I think we focus on as the easiest win that you could give yourself over the festive season, it's your hydration. It's cheap, it's free, it's really easy to do. It's low energy, low effort. If you get your hydration right, it takes care of other things as well. You're less likely to drink sugar or alcohol-containing drinks, less likely to get hungry because you've mistaken it for thirst. And it's a very big upside. Low-hanging fruit, think of that. As I was adding all the veg in here as well, it reminded me how easy it is just to throw veg at the problem. When you're a little bit unsure, and the sides as well, they came together. The simple things work. Right? So in December, remind yourself of those, are the simple things working for me. Right. Once it's covered in water, stick it on the oven, just bring it to the boil and then let it simmer. So that's the sort of time that it gave, that I gave you. In this case, it's about 90 minutes, which is a long time. Good opportunity to kind of reflect on a few things. But it was also, as I was in the kitchen and we were around the house, you get that aroma, and it's something that we're going to get a lot of over the festive season. You know, you might smell the gammon boiling away, or the lamb roasting in the oven, or the mince pies that have just been reheated, or whatever it is. And as this was all happening, it made me think of two things. And one of them was this time, and the sort of the celebrations and the importance of this. You know, it has so many good memories for us. So we don't want to put unnecessary pressure on it. We don't want to avoid everything because I'm scared of making mistakes or whatever the case is. You need to appreciate this time for what it is, filling that cup. And food might play a role in that, but it shouldn't be central to it. You shouldn't be able to have a good time or only have an effective celebration and the food's amazing. It does just make the day a little bit better, but don't pin it to that. I'd enjoy the moment for what it is, enjoy the food, don't put your pressure on, but also just be mindful. And one of the biggest aspects for this is being able to separate your hunger and appetite over this time. As that aroma wafts through the house, it makes me hungry. Not because I'm actually hungry, but it's starting to stimulate my appetite. And in the last session I did, I spoke a lot about this, sort of the difference between our hunger and our appetite. And if over December you can tune into your hunger a little bit better, which is your body's need to eat, you're going to be better off. If you eat when you're hungry, if you stop eating when you're starting to get a little bit full, you'll be all right. If you go down the path of eating because of your appetite, because of those lovely smells, because of the memories of things, because of the sight and sound and all these other aspects, that's where we start to run into trouble, because our body doesn't actually need that. And we're just eating for the sake of eating. We also end up overeating when that's the issue. So maybe spend the next couple of weeks just thinking to yourself a little bit more about hunger, letting that guide you. You often get away with your food choices. You can have a few sort of unhealthy things or things that aren't ideal when you're eating because you're hungry, and you stop eating when before you've eaten too much. But if your appetite takes you away, you might end up overeating. All right. After that, It's about making the most of your time. Simming away for 90 minutes, and I thought this is great because I had a lot of time then to do something before I had to start prepping anything else. And I've got thinking about how you can be most efficient with your time. You've created the environment and everything's there. It's ready for you. You've got to be efficient with it, right? And you can do that for both your food and your exercise. It's a good opportunity to think about that. I said keeping it simple is one thing. With your food, you can be efficient by keeping it simple. This is really simple. A roast gammon or whatever, it sounds glorious and glamorous, but it's actually simple. A few things, quick, easy, done. You might eat the same breakfast throughout December. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Focus on the simple. In that last slide, I mentioned how important it is listening to your hunger. Maybe that's all you're going to use to guide you through December. You'll be very good come the end of December if you've done that. Put your appetites to the side, focus on your hunger, and also then allow yourself this sort of 80% rule. Focus on it 80% of the time. 20% of the time, you can get away with a few things. You can also try and eat to being 80% full. Have a little space there. Make sure you don't always fill that little last corner of your stomach, and you're going to navigate December in a better place because of it. If you can, at the end of December, say to myself, I actually don't feel like at any occasion I overate, you're going to be in a good space because of that. You can avoid that. Just you don't want to feel like that. Make sure that you always leave a little space behind. From your exercise, you can also be efficient. Maybe it's short and sweet. 10 to 20 minutes is what you've got. Do it. There's some great workouts in our app that you can use. If you're just around the house, you're on holiday, you don't have any equipment, whatever it is, you don't need to think that you need to put big hours aside to get the result. Short and sweet will work. But if you want to go long, go long. That's totally fine. You can, if you've got the time, you want to put it there, do it. Or maybe you need to set yourself a goal or a challenge to be efficient. Again, in the app, we've got all of our December challenges live. Maybe it's some streaks or the hours that you want to do or the minutes or something. If you have something to hold yourself accountable to, you're going to be a lot more efficient with your time. From the exercise point of view as well, do it early. Wake up in the morning and put that time aside then. If you end up waiting too long until the gammon's on the stove and you want to try quickly get it out and done, things are going to get in the way. All of a sudden there's something else, there's a commitment, there's a whatever. Get it done early. You're going to be a little bit more successful. And perhaps you can tie in a little bit of active socializing as well. You've got some friends that you want to meet up, do it on the mountain, maybe walk the dog with your partner. Maybe it's at the beach, whatever it is, but try and think, are there any social events that I can actually be quite active in this December? And you'll be a bit better set for it. All right, then, after that was simmering away, thought about the efficiency of my time and then got into kind of the pièce de résistance, the end of this, the deliciousness, just to make it taste great as well. And thought about sort of some of the clever choices that you can make to make things taste nice, but still stay on track. The glaze was delicious, and popped the recipe in here for you guys. If you're going to do this over the holidays, use this glaze. Much better than the store-bought things, which high in salt, high in sugar, don't really know what's in there as well. Might also cost you 40 or 50 bucks for a little jar, where you might have all of this at home. 2 tablespoons of honey, a tablespoon of mustard, a tablespoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of vinegar, a little bit of garlic, cinnamon, and black pepper. The cinnamon was great in there because it's those flavors, a little festive season flavors. On the stove, heat it up just till it thickens, and then use that as your glaze. Delicious and a much better option than something that might come out of a jar. And it got me thinking about how just, doing something yourself or these small choices and swaps is all that you need. But you don't necessarily have to avoid things entirely, but can you make a mindful, wise decision? Maybe can I limit some sugars, limit the heavy creams and sauces, and a few ideas on the screen of maybe just some swaps that you can make. It might be, instead of the sugary desserts, it's summer, there's great produce. Can I get some fruits in here and get my sweetness from that instead? Instead of some cream, can we maybe look at some yogurt or blended cottage cheese? That's much better for us and better options. So a few small things go a long way. Those add up over the weeks and months. And at the end of the day, chances are you might be a little bit closer to having stayed on track if you've been able to do that. Then that's it. It's all about finishing it off, showing it a little bit of love. Home cooked is always great, and I love it here in the kitchen with the kids. They know the secret ingredient when something's made at home is always the little bit of love that gets sprinkled in at the end. And that's what this time is sort of about. It's spending that time together, appreciating it for what it is, how great it was. And then it's about dishing it up and enjoying it. So as I was dishing it up, I thought about, the perfect plate. Speaking a little bit about balance and leaving you with that. There's sort of the image of the empty plate here. I'm going to show you that finished product, which isn't the perfectly portioned plate, but this was great. That's what it looked like at the end. I've still got some leftovers, which is another super valuable thing about this. Fed the family and still got leftovers for breakfast and lunch the next day. Can tick the protein box, can get the veg in. Great. So dishing that up, and we're going to portion that. And where you're going to start with any meal is half a plate of veg. All right. You won't always have control over what's in front of you. You might be at a friend's house, at a work event, whatever it is, but you always have control about either how much you dish up or how much you put in your mouth. So this is a guide that'll help you there. Start with your veg. Half a plate, get the bulk in, loads of good nutrition, start with that. Then get the protein on the plate. So my gammon, or the T-bone steak, the image that's on the screen, about a quarter of the plate. The last quarter is whatever your starch or carbohydrate is. Right, so that's how you're going to tie it all together. Big, nice portion of veg, a little bit of protein, a little bit of starch. You can get away with your choices a little bit if you're able to stick with the portion control, and it helps you to stay on track. But you might not always get it right, and I've called it the perfect plate, but we don't always want to strive for perfection. A lot of this is really just about progress. So don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure. Don't think that I'm going to fail if I don't get this right. Just try and be a little bit better each time. Practice it and you're going to get a little bit better. Tying that into balance also means there are a few things that you might want to avoid. And if you can, try not to skip meals over this time. Stay in that routine. You don't want these big gaps in between meals, blood sugar all over the place. All of a sudden you're hungry and overeating and it becomes a little bit difficult. Don't bank your calories for that big dinner that you're going out for. Chances are you're going to overeat at that point anyway. You might also be a bit hungrier the next day. The body doesn't like that. That's not the way to sort of go. Rather think, I'm going to enjoy the meal, have a little bit of everything, just control my portions on it as well. From the exercise, nutrition relationship, don't think that you can earn your calories as well. This transactional relationship between, I'm going to go put in a big run or a big ride so that I can get away with that pizza. It's a wrong way of framing it. You want to see your food and your exercise as both positive contributors to wherever you're going, not one or the other, or one's a failure and the other's paying it off and there's a debt. See your food as nourishing you. See it as a way to fuel your exercise and your lifestyle. And if you don't really need as much fuel, just tone it down. Try to reframe that thinking so that you don't have this one against the other approach over the season. As we sat down to enjoy our gammon, obviously it goes beautifully with a little rosé or a Chenin. And it got me thinking a good way to tie in alcohol, the chats around that, because we know December quite likely brings it to the fore a bit more. And a good way to navigate it is this word of moderation, which is important, and it helps to guide us on the, less is always going to be better from an alcohol point of view. If we do consume some, try to stick within moderation. What that means for females is 1 to 2 units per day. Males, it's 2 to 3 units. A unit's a very small glass of wine. It's 150 mils. It's not perhaps how much is on the image there. It's 1 unit of alcohol or liquor. It's a beer, and trying to limit that. And like not saving your calories for the end of the day, not saving all of those drinks for the one occasion, moderation and spreading it out a little bit better. It's one of the biggest stumbling blocks to any health goals that you have: weight management, your sleep quality, refilling your cup, and your management of stress. There's so many things that it might get in the way. And the more moderate you can be over December, the better. To help moderate it, a few things quite often recommend. It's a glass of water in between each drink. Quite simple. It'll most probably make you end up drinking half the amount that you normally do, because every second one is a water or a sparkling water or the tonic without the gin. Maybe you'll do a little wine spritzer, just dilutes it a little bit, and it's great. There are plenty of good alcohol-free alternatives out there. to explore as well and help keep it down. And try and always have it with some food. Having alcohol before food's going to impact both how you metabolize and digest that, but also must probably make you make a poorer decision in what's available, what you're going to cook, maybe in terms of how much you're going to eat. And if you really wanted to be a bit stricter, you could balance it off and say, well, if I'm going to have a drink with my meal, I'm either going to remove the fat or remove the carbs just to balance things out. Your body doesn't metabolize fat very well once there's alcohol in the system. So the chances are that just goes into storage, so to speak. So just try to be a little bit more mindful about this. Remember, we focus on hydration as your easiest win, and it's a good way to kind of get there. So once I'd had my meal, I thought I'd just wrap it up quickly and give you a sneak peek of a little tool that we've got for our Nourish clients, which I wanted to use to see whether the meal was balanced and whether I'd achieved some success. So my dinner, the explanation or the description that you can see there, I got 5 out of 5. Ticked all of the components of a good balanced meal. There was a source of protein, the tool told me. There was a good source of starch from the roasted corn. And there was fruit and veg. So the one side that went in there was a little mango and pineapple salsa as well. A couple of these recipes are going to go live into the app this week, so you can make them yourself. There's a bit of healthy fat from the olive oil, and all in all, the choice was great. Plus, I made it myself, so it was a good job all around. So I thought it was success and a good way to kind of tie it all into what it might look like. So yes, it was a successful meal. The kids ate it. I've got leftovers. It tasted great. It also gave me an opportunity to tie this all into the story about eating well and navigating through December. And that's where I want to leave you, is thinking about what you might be able to do a little bit better off the back of today's chat to get through the season in better shape than maybe last year. Maybe that's where your bar needs to be. So what's it going to take? What's the thing that you can focus on that will help? Maybe it's planning and setting that all up so that you've got it. Maybe there's just a few nutritional choices that you can make. Maybe it's the mental health and filling your cup and getting rid of stress that's going to be your priority. Maybe it's the exercise. You've got a really good goal and challenge that you want to set yourself. Reframe the month ahead as, instead of thinking about the risks and what can go wrong, what I can achieve and what the opportunities are for me. And let's see if we can get into January in a good state, where we're on the front foot, we're ready to go, we feel like we're productive, we can perform, and we can do pretty well with the year ahead. You don't want to start with a half-full tank, and I think it's a really good chance over the next couple of weeks to push it out a little bit and see how well you do. All right. I'm going to jump into the questions and see if there's anything I can help you guys with. We have gone just past the 30 minutes. Feel free to jump back into your work if you need to, or pop a message into the chat if you have anything you want me to answer. I'm going to be around going through all of these questions. So I'm still here for a little bit. I think Jared has also just in the chat, if you guys wouldn't mind giving us 2 minutes of your time, just to leave your thoughts and review the session on the little form link that he gave us there. Any feedback's great, or any topics that you might want in the new year would be good as well. Jared wants to know what do I do about my Italian mother-in-law who takes offense if I don't have a 4th helping. There's some things that we just can't win at, but maybe each of the 4 helpings could be a little bit smaller. And your 4th helping gives you a full helping. Lorato is going to help you out. That's another good way. You can get the little ones to support you on that. Yes, Liz, we will share the recording. So after this, I am going to put together the recording and I'll send it out on mail to you. It's going to be on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to go view it there. A 10-minute walk after a big meal does wonders for moderating the insulin response and firing up the metabolism. Exactly. Jared, our fountain of knowledge, exactly is that. So a good way to help your digestion and metabolism. Some nice light exercise. You've had a good lunch, good Christmas lunch, and get out, walk around, get down to the beach, walk the dog around the block, whatever it is. Your body is going to use those nutrients a lot better, and you're going to feel a lot better for it as well. Should we weigh ourselves regularly over December? So there is some interesting research that we more likely not to pick up weight if we weigh ourselves daily. There's a caveat to this. So if we're comfortable with it as a process and we can see it as purely a monitoring tool, and you don't associate any kind of significant emotions to it, struggle with seeing your progress and failures of the number on a scale, then it is a good, useful tool. As I mentioned, your weight does fluctuate every day, depending on your body weight as a starting point. 500 grams to a kilogram a day is normal, and that's nothing changing except fluid weight. Your body doesn't pick up fat or lose fat that quickly. It's normally the daily shifts are most probably fluid. But having a look at it over a trending period of a week, for example, when you're measuring it every day, can help. Otherwise, it might be once a week as just a little reminder, same time, same place, to see how you're doing. But if you can do it and you're happy to do it, it can help you stay on track as another little tool. Lorato, you worry a lot about the alcohol consumption during the holiday. How do I share my concerns with friends and family without coming off as judgmental? So I think the important thing is just to have it be your own thing. It's got nothing to do with judging anyone else. And if you're happy to let them know that, that's fine. You can share it just as your own requirement to feel better. We need to be able to own that space and understand that us feeling better about ourselves, having more energy, sleeping better, achieving our health goals, or performing better, should be more than enough motivation to be able to make those sort of choices. If you feel strong enough in that space to do it, that's great. You can share it with those people who matter to you. And they should be able to join that with you, not necessarily from avoiding alcohol, but appreciating that it's of importance to you. You shouldn't have to feel that it undermines you in any way. But that said, if you do feel uncomfortable about it, you can kind of go on it in terms of, having the wine with a little bit of sparkling water as a spritzer, and it just helps you to moderate it. Or, maybe every second drink, like I said, is the glass of water in between, or instead of the gin and tonic, you're just having the tonic. And you don't want to put up with the unnecessary stress of convincing anyone else why it's important for you. But in that space, I'd encourage you to own it. There's nothing wrong with limiting and avoiding alcohol. Right. All right, I think I've got all of the questions there. I'm going to scroll back to the top just in case I didn't. But if you have anything else, pop it into the chat for me. You can also go into the Q&A bar. Yesterday, I posted a little survey. If you want to see, we put together a little survey of how ready I am for December. And you can see we've got 3 categories, and perhaps maybe you set up for it, or perhaps there are a few things that you focus on, and we can give you a little bit of advice around that. And over the December period, there's plenty to navigate within Strove. I'm pretty sure majority of you are Strove users, so use it as an opportunity. If you need some workouts, if you need some recipes, some of these are going to go up there as well. If you need an opportunity to refill your cup with some meditation or breath work, or something to help you sleep, explore it. That's what we're here for. Hopefully helping you start the new year in a good space, ready to rock and roll. Otherwise, guys, thank you very much for joining me on our wellness webinar. Jared's just posted the link in there again for the form if you're happy to give us some feedback. We'll be back at you in the new year with a few different things. And I hope you all have a beautiful December. You refill your cup, you come back energized in a good space, and at least feel like you've met a challenge, you've progressed, you've ticked something off with the opportunities that lie ahead. Have a beautiful end to your 2024, and we're going to see you in 2025. Cheers, guys.